Welcome. What is up? Welcome to This Week in the Mixer. I am RC, your host, joined by my co-host here, Jeff. So we're just got a few things on the docket today. We're gonna recap what happened in the conference championship games. Maybe get a little bit of Super Bowl preview. Probably gonna save the most of that though for next week, as the hype begins. The build-up begins as the hot stone and the egg grill is getting fired up at the Gardella household. It's an annual tradition. So yeah, we're gonna save some of that hype for next week. Don't want to get burnt out all at once. I want to talk about that Kansas brawl, a little bit of sign stealing. We were going to talk about Epstein, but since my co-host here, his tum-tum isn't feeling that good, I think we're going to save that for next year, or for next week. And maybe we'll talk a little Epstein conspiracy. And what else we got? Maybe the AB saga. So let's get into it. Let's get into games first. So morning game. Romo as a color analyst. We had the Titans versus the Chiefs. Titans got off to a quick start, went up 10-0 right off the bat, I want to say. And then I believe the Chiefs got a touchdown, and then the Titans answered back, made it 17-7, and then that was pretty much the last that the Titans had control of the game. They just couldn't stop the Chiefs on offense. What's their running back's name? Oh no, this is happening already. The off fantasy season, being able to recall every player's name, especially in the pivotal position. I can't think of the running back. I want to say it's Williams, but I feel like that's wrong. Damian Williams, right? Damian Williams. We're going to go with Damian Williams. 4 touchdowns? 5 touchdowns? Yeah, I think I saw somewhere that no, it was the Niners. Fuck, I'm fucking this up. We're going to move on. Chiefs won 35-24. Andy Reid's getting back to the big dance. Happy to see Tyreek Hill, have a chance at getting a title. It is kind of tough seeing a team from the Chargers division getting the Super Bowl. The Chargers now have the longest drought of any AFC West team from getting to the Super Bowl. So, sad day. That's okay though. The Chiefs are pretty likable overall. So congrats to them. Congrats to any of you guys who might have picked them in the preseason to go to the Super Bowl. They are there, and thank God, because based on the other outcome, it would have been a pretty tough Super Bowl to watch unless we had an electric offense in there. So it should be fun, the Super Bowl. But we'll get into more of that a little bit later. NFC Championship game. I mean, this one felt like it was over. By halftime. The 49ers controlled it the whole way. I know Mostert got a lot of scores for them. Destroyed the Packers 37-20. Rodgers had some, late touchdowns and made the score a little bit closer than the game really was. I mean, we had Justin calling the game, sending out the GGs pretty early, saying, why doesn't Rodgers just take a knee? As enjoyable as that would have been for Anthony, the Packers had some pride, finished it out. I think they had a shot at an onside kick. They had a shot at a stop on like 3rd or 4th down where it would have been tight, if Rodgers got the ball back. Maybe they got a quick touchdown. They could have onside kicked it, and then we could have been treated to another Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary throw to the end zone on the West Coast. And who knows what the outcome would be. He's like 2 for 2, 3 for 3 on those. Would have liked to see it. Instead, we have the Niners, who are running out an offense from the 70s, and yeah, and their defense is pretty entertaining, pretty dominant. So that aspect of their squad might be somewhat enjoyable. It's just it's kind of hard to get up for this team when I think they had Garoppolo drop back like 8 times. I saw something on Twitter. Somebody said this will be the first time a quarterback is coming off a 5-week bye, heading into the Super Bowl. Another thing I saw on Twitter is everybody amazed and like in awe of Kyle Shanahan, right? I know it's Shanahan. I believe it's Kyle Shanahan, the head coach, predicting that there would be a hold on Kittle on one of their few pass plays, and it's like, really, the overpowered and undersized, or excuse me, the underpowered and undersized DB is going to hold the monster that is George Kittle on a play designed for him. Like, you think? Props to Kyle Shanahan for pointing it out to the ref, but I mean, some of the stuff I saw on Twitter is just like, oh my god, this guy's like a savant, you know? It's like, okay, yeah. I mean, you pointed out that there's probably going to be a hold called on one of your most dominant players, and tight ends get held all the time. I am glad the ref called it, but still, man, I mean, come on, dude. Really, that's what we're getting impressed by. Minor gripe, not that big of a deal. I mean, the Niners have dominated the NFC. They deserve to be there. I think they're kind of a boring team. Running just isn't really sexy to me. I've heard people say that they think Shanahan and the Niners make running sexy. No, Lamar Jackson makes running look sexy. This is just overpowering them. So I don't know. It's just not my vibe. There's definitely a bit of salt in my tone. If I could have picked the two teams that maybe would have upset me the most to make the Super Bowl, I don't know if the Niners would have been there. And I don't know if it was at the Chiefs, if it would have been specifically the Chiefs. It probably would have been like Patriots, I don't know, Patriots Bears or something, Patriots Saints. I mean, I guess I kind of like the Saints, but I don't know. I'm just saying, it's more evidence of the big sim people trolling me by having the Niners, who are going to make like other people in our league happy, which of course I don't want, and the Chiefs, who look like they're on the verge of creating a dynasty in a league or in the same division as the Chargers, where they got some rough years ahead replacing their quarterback. So anyway, well played, Big Sim. All right, so that covers the conference championships. Next thing I wanted to move on to was how about we'll stick to football, as my Twitter followers would say if I had any, and we'll talk about the AB saga. I mentioned pretty early on, there's I mean, in the pre Jeff days. Was that? You think you disagree? Okay, they know you disagree with me, but we got to keep this thing moving forward. Come on. Talking about AB, it all started. What did it start with? Him burning his feet or freezing his feet, and then the helmet, and then missing practice, and then calling the Raiders owner, dropping a C-bomb Not that C-bomb, the other C-bomb. The C-bomb that people don't really care if you say it, but, you know, in case I become famous someday, I don't want people screenshotting this and taking it back. And then he got cut, went to the Patriots, had like those domestic violence charges against him. Patriots cut him. Seems like he's having more domestic violence issues, and now he's throwing rocks at moving companies and shouting at cops, telling his baby mama to leave. My man, what is going on? You know, I always thought when people were saying, oh, you know, it's after that Fontes Perfect, is that how you say his last name? Perfect, like perfect, but not. After that hit, his whole personality changed. I mean, he's always been kind of that diva receiver. His end zone celebrations that have been over the top. I don't know if it was something Tomlin was doing that kind of kept him under control, and now the lid's just off and we're seeing it more. I don't know if this is some sort of ploy to try to get a reality show or something. I know, I think he's trying to do something with music, right? I saw him do something with some music video with a bunch of girls in their underwear dancing around. You know, he also tweeted something a few weeks ago that 2020, it's like no white girls 2020 or something is what he said. I mean, the guy is just all over the place. I seriously don't know how it ends with anything other than a police chase. There's a warrant out for him right now for throwing a rock at the movie company guy. You know, hopefully he turns himself in. I don't know how all that works. Gets released on bail, right? So he'll probably have to do a bit, you know, maybe overnight or something. So we'll get the mug shot. Can't wait for that. It's gonna be all over Twitter. You know, I'm sure some dudes, some analysts, some up and comers will use that as their Twitter pick, profile pick. So more to come on that. I mean, the way it's escalating, I don't see this thing ending in any way other than bad. I mean, I hope he has some people in his life, maybe some other players that can help him out, get him through whatever he's going through, get him going in the right direction. I mean, he's still got gas in the tank. He left as one of the top receivers. He can play for another 5 years easy. But he just needs to take care of his chicken. And especially needs to take care of his mentals, because right now he's not taking care of mentals. I doubt he's taking care of his chicken. So maybe my dude Marshawn will reach out to him, get him right, and AB can be catching passes from Trevor Lawrence and seeing Freudian slip in you know, Dignity Sports Park or whatever the new stadium is going to be called in LA. All right, moving on. Next thing I want to talk about, NFL related, we'll stay on that, is the Aaron Hernandez, Inside the Mind of Aaron Hernandez or something on Netflix. I did mention last year, I was kind of going over a little bit on here, a little bit on This Week in the Mix there. You know, some of you OGs out there listen during the dry months in the summer. I appreciate it. This might be a recap. I believe it was like a year and a half ago. There was a podcast about the Aaron Hernandez case's story, everything that led up to his suicide, basically. So I won't go over everything. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty about his sexuality. He might have been gay, he might have been homosexual or bisexual, at least in some senses. Not much more came to light in the Netflix documentary about that. Just that some people were, suspected. They are saying that maybe that's why he went after the guy that he killed in the rock quarry, because he knew something about that. I don't know. They didn't really present any new evidence to suggest that. If anything, the documentary kind of made me question if that was legit or not. It just seemed like something that the prosecution came up with to give Hernandez a motive to kill him, to kill the guy in the rock quarry, because it didn't really seem like he had one. And that doesn't mean that, he didn't do it. It seems in all likelihood like he did. But as far as, if he was gay, if he was bisexual, if he was closeted, I'm not sure that had any bearing on, well, I'm not sure if that's true, if there's even been enough evidence to show that was the case, and I'm definitely not sure if that had any bearing on why he murdered the guy in the rock quarry, if he did. And they didn't really, it was kind of cool, not cool, but interesting, I guess, to see some of the video that they had, of him driving, leaving the scene, the nightclub, the other murder. I don't know if you guys, how closely you guys are following, but there was a guy who was a friend, it was his wife's sister's boyfriend, so or maybe even fiance, can't remember, but he was almost like a family member, was the one he killed in the rock quarry. The guy in the rock quarry was like kind of hesitant, let his wife, or excuse me, his fiance, girlfriend know, that he was going to be hanging out with him, like, hey, like, there's some text messages that he was uncomfortable with that. But on top of that, there was like an earlier case where these two guys, actually 3 dudes in a car, had a silver like Toyota SUV pull up and just empty the cartridge of the gun into the car. It killed, I think, the driver and the passenger, and then the guy in the back seat got shot. He lived, and basically there was the only evidence that they had of who could have done it pointed to Hernandez, because he had a silver SUV. He was at the nightclub that the guys were leaving at, and those guys spilled a drink on Hernandez. But and also one of the guys who testified against Hernandez in both cases was with him, and said that he was pissed off and wanted to go after those guys that spilled the drink, and that he wanted to follow them to see where they were going, and maybe was even in the car when he shot it up. I believe so. I believe he testified to that. I'm not entirely sure. Got the baby. I'm trying to watch it while I got the baby, so these details are a little bit sketchy. Anyway, it seemed like he murdered those dudes too. And it was interesting to see like the footage from the nightclub where those guys were there, and then outside the nightclub when he like wanted to go after him, and then his car, the silver SUV, like going after him. Obviously didn't see that on the podcast. I don't even remember talking about that on the podcast as something that was presented as evidence in that case. And then, more interesting, I guess, was he was found not guilty somehow of the murder of the 2 guys in the car with the drive-by. Found not guilty. I don't know how. They didn't really go into much detail about why he wasn't found guilty. He was found guilty of the guy being murdered in the rock quarry. The other interesting thing, before I want to go any further, was I didn't know Robert Kraft's testimony was a big factor in the guilty verdict, because I guess like Kraft and Belichick were asking him, like, like, what happened? And he's like, well, I don't know. Everything's going to be fine because I was at a nightclub when the shooting happened. Like, they're saying he died at 2 in the morning. I was still at the nightclub. All the evidence showed that Hernandez left early. He wasn't in a nightclub. So Robert Kraft going up there and saying, well, this is what he told me, and that wasn't true. So that raised a lot of eyebrows, like, okay, why was Hernandez lying about this from the start? So, Robert Kraft, they showed video footage in the courtroom, didn't even look at Hernandez, and Hernandez is like looking over his shoulder, keeps like looking over his shoulder to try to see him. It was really weird. It was almost like seeing a child that had been disowned or something, like trying to like look for approval, like look for something positive. And I don't know, it was weird. It was kind of sad to watch. I mean, I don't want to feel, you can't really feel bad for somebody who did what he did, allegedly. I mean, if we could even say that, he was found guilty of it. But you could see that there's definitely something wrong with Hernandez. He didn't take care of his mentals, as Marshawn said. So he's found guilty of that. In jail, goes to trial for the other murders with the drive-by. He's found not guilty of that. There's some like crazy loophole, I guess, in Massachusetts, right? Because I believe this happened, or was it Connecticut? I don't know if it was Connecticut or Massachusetts, whatever state all this happened in. There's like some weird antiquated law, or there was, where if you like die while you're on trial, then like your case is dropped or something. And they found out because there was a Catholic priest accused of molesting a bunch of kids, because of course, and he died. He committed suicide, so all of his charges were like vacated, dropped. They couldn't press it. So since he was appealing the murder of the guy in the rock quarry while he committed suicide, technically, like, he was exonerated of that at the time. And I guess because of that, the Patriots would have to pay his fiance whatever like guaranteed money he had still left on his contract, because it wouldn't be voided by a criminal charge anymore. And so like that was getting tied up in the courts. And then I guess like the state changed their law. Again, this was kind of late at night, kind of tired, had the baby, couldn't really tell what the outcome was. But if they still owe that money to his wife, what do you call it? His widow. Anyway, so all that was just super interesting. It kind of suggests that Hernandez likely committed suicide, at least in part, to do what he thought would set up his wife and daughter, I believe, or maybe it's his son. So, I mean, really troubled individual, obviously. It's very revealing to see how these guys, if not given the right support system and given access to all the luxuries and privileges in life, how bad it can go. So the NFL can only do so much, but I wish there was a more active program in identifying these guys who may be having some issues, and getting help and the support system that they need. Then it's no secret that the NFL is not, some great community program. They're not winning Best Place to Work awards from J&D Power and Associates or whatever it's called. No secret there, but they can do more. And it's such a, I don't know, it's such an establishment in the US that they could really be a role model for other companies, for other professional sports leagues, if they would just do more for their players. These guys kill themselves out there. I'm not sure how much of that falls on the players union, but it's something that I think they can and should be doing more, and hopefully someday they will. Moving on, from one controversy to the next, I think I'm gonna save talking about stealing signs for when my co-host here is a little more talkative. Did you have something to add? I mean, what are your thoughts on this? It doesn't matter what your thoughts on this are. So I'm gonna save the talk about sign stealing. There might be more revelations from that coming, but it'll be good to hit that next week. We don't want as much football stuff to talk about besides Super Bowl hype and maybe some Univision chick asks Jimmy Garoppolo to give her a honka or something. That's probably super sexist. I'm sorry. I'm just saying that the media shows are stupid. Like, they never ask any good questions about the game. It's always like the silly bullshit that gets the headlines. So maybe we'll have something to talk about football related next week, but we should have more time to talk about stealing signs and get into that. Last thing I wanted to talk about though today was, can you remember? Do you have your show notes? Yeah, fuck, man. This guy. Sometimes I wonder. It was Malice at the Palace Part 2. I assume whatever the Jayhawks arena is, there's no catchy rhyme that would go, as fittingly as Malice at the Palace, because I probably would have seen it by now. That was wild. I mean, A, why? 2, yes. And C, this is good for the Aztecs because Kansas is ranked 3rd. Is that terrible for me to think? That was like initially the first place my mind went was Kansas ranked number 3. They're gonna have players suspended. Yes, bump those Aztecs up. So, what was the guy's name? It's not the dude who started it all. What was he? 22, 33? His number? De Sousa or something like that. Quick reset on what happened. Kansas is up, dribbling out the clock basically in the winding seconds. There definitely wasn't 10 seconds. It's probably more than 5. Dribbling out the clock, Kansas State guy goes, steals the ball, tries to make a layup. Dude who has the ball stolen, runs back, swats the shot like 10 rows back into the stands, stands over him, towers over him. Kansas State guys go, get in his face. Next thing you know, everybody's throwing hands, circles around into the disabled section and the cheerleaders. I saw one chick knocked over. Dude picks up the chair. Coach out of nowhere comes and stops him. Thank God. It was actually a bar stool from, going after the guy, whoever on Kansas State. And, there was some pushing. If it weren't for the dude picking up the bar stool, it probably wouldn't have been that big of a deal. Probably, they probably still would have got a double game suspension since they were throwing hands, but, the dude picked up essentially a weapon. Maybe Justin can shed some light, or Sean. I know he's not like a litigator and probably doesn't deal with like criminal trials, but But is that assault with deadly weapon? Going no holds barred, WWE style. Anyway, luckily he got knocked out of his hand, but I mean the visual of that, there's pictures everywhere. Pretty stunning. Pretty bad, really bad. As I might may quote fellow May Bracket member Matt Hale, that's bad. That's like really bad. Eloquently put, couldn't put it better myself. That was like really bad. So I think DeSouza, whatever his name is, he's suspended indefinitely, I saw. I don't see that not being for the remainder of the year. Maybe he comes back next year. I'm not sure what his eligibility is for the draft or what his draft stock is even, if he'll declare. But either way, I did see that he was, quote, a pivotal role of Kansas's run in the tournament last year. So they lost a big name, and you gotta like what that means for the Aztecs. They're sitting at number 4, pending of the weekend games outcomes. I don't know if they leapfrog Kansas because they got suspended. I don't know if they factor that into the rankings. They might. But the other teams ahead, right? Baylor's at number 1. Am I mistaken in saying that Baylor's number 1? And Gonzaga usually finishes like top 5 or so. They do good in the regular season, then kind of fizzle in the tournament. Baylor, in the few instances I remember them being a top rank, I think they were bounced pretty early too. So, I mean, at this point, who knows how far SDSU's run is going to go. Conference games are a challenge regardless of how easy those teams might be. They're not afraid when they see SDSU on their schedule because they play them every year. So hopefully they don't get upset. They're going to be favored the rest of the way. Hopefully they can run the table. Hopefully Gonzaga loses, because the way they do the bracket is, they have they try to regionalize it, so there'll be one team from the West that gets a number 1 spot. So if Gonzaga is still above them, it's going to be tough to give SDSU and Gonzaga 1 seeds heading into the tournament. 1 versus 2, it's not that big of a deal as far as the seeding goes. It's not too huge of a difference, but just for pride's sake, Jeff knows all about consolation prizes. I'm sure he'd agree that if SDSU can either run the table, be the number 1 ranked overall team this season at some point, or be a 1 seed in the tournament, would be a hell of an accomplishment. Let's hang that banner. Let's cut some nets. Let's go SDSU. I believe that we'll win some games. Maybe we'll get to the Elite 8 this year. I don't think they haven't gotten past the Sweet 16, have they? Maybe they did get to the Elite 8 once. I don't know. I'm pretty sure the Sweet 16 is the highest they've gotten. They got there the year with with Kawhi in that game versus Kemba Walker, right, where he just went off. I heard recently that I guess Kawhi got 2 quick fouls in that game, so they had to bench him for some of the first half. And so that might go down as some of the San Diego lore that we have out there. Marlon McCree not taking a knee, Matt Holiday not touching home plate, that what should have been a strike 3 call against, who was it? Was it Paul O'Neill? Who the fuck was the Yankee that hit a home run in game 1 of the World Series? Kawhi getting 2 quick fouls in that game should be right up there, because that team was freaking electric, and UConn went on to win it. And SDSU, I remember, was in that game. So who knows what could happen if Kawhi didn't get those 2 quick fouls on questionable questionable ref decisions. We might have to go back and reanalyze that. So at least we have something in San Diego that we can be proud about again. SDSU is back. The show at Viejas is back. Yeah, let's win some games. Let's cut some nets. That's going to wrap it up for this week, guys. Take care of your chickens. Take care of your mentals. FC need to kill himself. Let's get it. See you guys.